Hey everyone, Mia here from Resonance Astrology and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at the astrology of the week ahead from May 12th till May 18th. And this week is starting off intense with the Scorpio Full Moon. On top of that, we also have a Mercury square Pluto, like just about an hour after the full moon. So it's really linked to the full moon in and of itself. The full moon is also very close by to like Uranus and the sun, which are going to conjoin later on at the end of the week. So we're definitely also going to talk about that. So everything feels a bit like prickly and how should I say, there is a tension, like the tension kind of wanes after the Scorpio full moon. It flattens out a bit in the middle of the week as there aren't any significantly major transits, but obviously we feel the build up that is leading up to the weekend, especially around Sunday when the sun is going to conjoin Uranus. We also have Mercury squaring Mars, Mercury in Taurus squaring Mars in Leo. And what we also have on Sunday is we have Jupiter in Gemini also squaring the North Node in Pisces. That is also going on. What we also have on Friday is Venus is finally exiting out of her post-shadow period. So everything that has been unfolding in our lives, our Venus retrograde story that has been unfolding, which started around January 28th, that's when she entered her shadow degrees for the first time and she was in pre-shadow period. And now the story is really wrapping up. And this is great because she's kind of the final player that is wrapping up her story. We already had Mars, I think last week or a bit prior to that. Mercury already finished it up sooner, but I feel like these were really these key players, like these three prominent inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and now they all like really finished and wrapped up their stories, and it's really a new chapter that is starting. So this is what we're going to talk about this week a bit more in depth. Also, if you didn't notice already, I kind of decided to change my background here a bit. I'm also not quite sure yet about the lighting. I might like switch around and play around a bit. There's a beautiful lamp that has already existed before. The thing is just the office space that I've had before was just not good in that way that I wanted it, and that's why I constantly pulled out that Japanese like paravan, which I really love, but it belongs to my room, so it's a bit annoying like constantly having to pull it out, set it up, and then bring it back into my room. So I really wanted to switch things up here, but things are gonna get added. Like this is not the final background, but I definitely wanted to make the background a bit more nicer, a bit more personal, because the paravan feels a bit distant. I'm sure you get what I'm trying to say. Like this feels much more personal, even though these are not all my things. But yeah, things are definitely going to get edited. There is actually a lot of astrology artwork that I have that I want to include in the back, and I think it would just make the ambience a lot nicer. And yeah, maybe add some extra lights, I'm not sure, maybe like some cool light here, something here. Yeah, again, I'm not sure yet, but I'm embracing the background change and I hope you are too. So yeah, again, it feels a bit more personal, which is fitting for me considering that this full moon in Scorpio is transiting my first house very close to my sun and ascendant in Scorpio, and it's ruled by a Mars in Leo that is in my 10th house of like, the public image and my work. So it feels so fitting for me to do this right now. And yeah, also like reflection wise, I'm just thinking, I feel like last week, I kind of was talking how it's like a milder week. I feel like it was not to be underestimated. And I kind of regret saying that. I think it was a much tougher week for a lot of people. I think I downplayed it a bit. And I wish I didn't. That's just what I have to say. The Scorpio full moon is definitely not a joke. I don't think that's what I was trying to make it of. And also the like Chiron transit as well was also very much up in the air, not to be underestimated. So yeah, definitely interesting things going on. And now we're like rounding it up because I already did a whole video on the Scorpio full moon. If you haven't already checked it out, check it out. It's a very in-depth video on the archetype of Scorpio and why the moon is in its fall in the sign of Scorpio. So if you want a deep dive, like definitely check out that video. Otherwise, the big event of the full moon is happening today evening, at least here in Central European time. Also important to mention if anyone's like new here to my channel, just because there have been a few new people that subscribe to the channel over the video. I'm from Europe, so all the times, like all the transits I mentioned, they're always based on Central European time, which might be slightly different on your region. They might happen like at a different time of the day, or even at a completely different day. You know, if it's a transit that is happening right past midnight here, it might happen a day prior where you're coming from. Or sooner or later, like wherever you are in the world, right? We all have different time zones. But I do think it's important to mention, just also because statistically wise, I just see a lot of people that, you know, tune in here are from America. So again, time-wise, you guys are like behind, so to say, with the time. So the full moon is happening here almost at 7 p.m. That means like for y'all, it's happening like way sooner, like late morning time. So that's like different, you know what I mean? So I do think that's important to mention. And exactly. So the full moon in Scorpio, I feel like what I want to say here, what I did not already say in the video, is that because I didn't go so much into the fact that like just a bit after we also have Mercury squaring Pluto. And I do think that is very significantly playing into all of this as well. Again, Pluto is like the modern ruler of Scorpio. I don't really associate modern rulers with the signs, but I do think there is just something very interesting going on there, because Mercury, Pluto together can amplify our sense of, you know, like paranoia, not being really sure, kind of getting really obsessive over things. And the moon is in its fall in the sign of Scorpio. That's why the moon in Scorpio is already tends to be a very like, it has like this watchdog energy, because the moon symbolizes our body and our environment. And there is something that Scorpio or Scorpio moon kind of always does, is very much checking, scanning the environment for threats, always being on the lookout. It's very survivalistic in that way. And so obviously there is a big intuition component here with Scorpio, and I don't want to deny that. Regardless, sometimes these feelings can be wrong. And it's like, when is it intuition? When is it just like a trauma pattern or a trauma response or a trigger that is coming up that is not actually genuinely a threat? And with Mercury squaring Pluto, this can definitely be amplified, because what Pluto sometimes tends to do is to make big things small and small things big. So here we have it, you know, it's like, just be aware and be very like cautious with what your mind is like getting into. If you're getting into some paranoid obsessive states over certain things, make sure to just like take a bit of a step back and truly ask yourself, if you can. I know, like, I don't want to downplay that sometimes when we are in the states, it feels very real. Like, I've been there, so I know, and like anxiety, paranoia of that, like it feels very real. At the same time, if you can do it alone, like just take a few steps back and really like analyze, is this really true? Maybe you can also get the help of another person that can maybe be a bit more objective and kind of like move you through the experience of like really realizing, is it something that is intuitively coming up for me? And there's a good chance that like the suspicion that I'm having is leading to something, is going to a direction where I should genuinely be cautious, or is it some sort of old trauma pattern that is coming up? Because Scorpio moons are a lot of fixed emotions, difficult emotions. So lots of things from the past that we have not yet fully conquered. And that's what often gets brought up on the Scorpio full moon. And that's why it's so important to ask ourselves that exact question. Like, maybe it's something also from the past that is coming up, and it's like a past trauma trigger or a story that is resurfacing, and there isn't any actual genuine fear or danger that where I should feel threatened. So it is an opportunity, definitely, to alchemize certain things. You know, when things come up, we sometimes tend to overanalyze. Oh, why is it coming up right now? I don't think we need to know the why as much as we need to have immediate solutions and what we do when things come up. And I want to talk about something that back when I realized that was kind of very revelatory. Oh gosh, I can't say that word. Revelatory. It just did a lot of things for me. Let's just put it that way. I'm sure you guys know what I'm trying to say. I was reading a book of Michael Singer, which is called The Untethered Soul. Yes, that is the book. Actually, I was listening to it. I wasn't reading it. That was already like 4 years ago now. Crazy. And the thing is, maybe you guys know, maybe you don't. I kind of already grew up in a spiritual community. My parents were like part of like a spiritual group, you could say. And so I grew up with a lot of like yogic teachings. Let's just put it that way. So there's lots of words that I heard constantly. I didn't fully understand what they mean. And one of that is samskara. I heard that many times. And like, I didn't fully get what that means. And then I was listening to the book of Michael Singer, and he explained it in a way that was just like, phew, you know, like it just blew my mind at that moment when I heard about it. And that's basically that samskara is an unfinished energy pattern. And so, what does that mean? So when we're walking around, having our day, whatever, something happens, maybe you go to a grocery store, the person at the desk is rude to you for some reason. Okay, you know, it brings up some sort of anger, but you push it down in that moment. It's not really acceptable to maybe lash out at this person, so you kind of shove it down. Okay, that's very mild, you know, or maybe let's maybe do a bigger example. You have an argument with your partner or something like that about the car that they are driving. Let's keep it weirdly simple. Like they're driving a Honda. I don't fucking know. And basically, so you're having an argument in the car, about the car, something like that. You shove it down in the moment. You don't fully experience the feeling in the moment. And then every time you go out, you see a Honda passing by, subconsciously, your mind associates this with some sort of stress. But what we continually try to do, especially on a day-to-day basis, when we're like, why am I getting distressed? Like, it's a normal day, this Honda drove by. It's very subconscious, by the way, this process. We just naturally shove it down, shove it down, shove it down. That's just how we kind of learned to do many things. And what happens then, the energy pattern is unfinished. We didn't fully let it pass through us. So it's still in our body doing all sorts of things. And the thing is, right, like it enters us, and then when we don't let it pass through us, our mind starts to get very active. And this is where a lot of this overthinking comes in. A lot of the noise and the chatter from our brain, because the natural first instinct of us is to overanalyze a situation. When we have not even successfully done that, like it goes down into our body, usually in our heart. But also in other regions, you know, and then like over time, if there's a lot, like And I mean like really ugly feelings right now, okay? Like traumatic things that got stored, grief that got stored, shame that got stored, because that's the realm of the moon in Scorpio. Like this unpleasant feeling, a lot of rage that got stored, that got flattened out into like depression at the end of the day or something like that. This can then turn into dis-ease in our body because these samskara, these impressions, that's actually maybe even the better word. I'm sorry. Samskara is like an impression. We didn't let it pass through us. This impression, this unfinished energetic pattern. And so what Scorpio moon is often pulling us to do is to experience that emotion. And obviously our first reaction is always confusion because we're like, why is this coming up? Like this happened 10 years ago. But the thing is, because when we are like, oh, I don't want to go back to the past, like I don't want to think about the past never left. If it is bothering us, if something from 10 years ago is still bothering us, this energy pattern, this samskara never even made it through us. So it never actually left us. We never actually fully let it go through us. And so when things are coming up, when our things are demanding to be felt, when the Scorpio moon chimes in, you know, it's like, okay, now we got to sit with it and feel it. Because nothing can be fully understood unless it has been felt. And again, it's an illusion that we are going to the past. Because if the past is still triggering and doing things to us, it never left us. The past is still imprinted in our body. The body keeps the score, right? And so when these things come up, the best of our ability, what we can do is to find room and space to hold it in remembrance. Let this feel like, you know, go through this feeling through our body, rage about it, paint about it, express it in some sort of way that is healing. Look at it so that this energy pattern can then fully go through you. And then you are rid of that samskara. Okay. And again, I use a very like simple example right now. This goes way, way, way deeper. And I also really recommend the book. It really, really helped me out in the way. I think it's pretty great, especially depending on where you are in your like healing journey, spiritual journey, if we want to call it that way. I think it's a very well packaged. And I also really liked his other book, The Surrender Experiment, because it's definitely something I'm also always trying to apply to my life, and treat my life as a surrender experiment. Again, surrender, big word. A lot of surrendering lies in the doing, not in like not doing, which I think a lot of people get wrong. But this is basically a topic for another time, to be completely honest. Otherwise, this video would be 2 hours long. But definitely 2 books I can highly, highly recommend and that have helped me out immensely during a very difficult time in my life, and to kind of get things straight and to also have a new understanding of like the tradition I kind of came from. I really needed that like also more Western perspective of it, because I grew up in a Western world, right? I didn't grow up in like India or anything like that. So I really needed these perspectives from like both ends. That was a very beautiful alchemy process for me. So yeah, but there's also many, like honestly, all the people that I have recommended this book, The Untethered Soul, had very beautifully life-changing experiences after that. And it's like, I think 4 or 5 people. So I do think it's a very interesting book, and like this type of book that comes into your life when you are ready to read it, to listen to it, to take it in. Again, I listened to the audio version. I do believe every time I put it on YouTube, there's always some sort of free audio version of it too. It might not be like the official one, but you have pretty good chances, I think, of finding it for free on YouTube. So just the FYI, you can totally go search for it and listen to it for free, hopefully. So this is kind of what we are starting off with Monday. Kind of intense, not gonna lie. And then things are kind of waning off a bit. On Tuesday, the moon moves into Sagittarius. That is definitely a lighter energy in and of itself. And And I think that's very good, just to keep this week a bit light as well. We don't really have any significant transits otherwise. Like on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and on Thursday, there aren't really any significant transits. Around Thursday evening, the moon moves into the sign of Capricorn, which is again a bit of a harder realm for the moon to be in. So I totally fully appreciate after the full moon that the energy is just a little bit lighter, at least, you know. And we're also soon entering into Gemini season. We are really slowly moving from like Taurian things into Gemini things, and this is also kind of where this week is heading. Like, we're kind of going into a lot of final chapters here with a lot of Taurus things in our lives. As I then already mentioned, on Friday, Venus finally exits her post-shadow period, the degrees where she was going back and forth over during her retrograde period. This, when she entered the pre-shadow phase, that was on January 28th. So it's a really long story that has unfolded over our lives, especially in the Pisces and Aries parts of our charts, and now this is coming to a close, and Venus is finally ready to like move on into a new chapter. And in what interesting new chapter she is moving. This is not yet happening this week, but Venus is definitely heading into an engagement range with trining Mars and Leo as well. And this is for me really because both of them are coming together in a trine again in fire signs instead of water signs. And both of them are like outside of their post-shadow degrees now. So it's really like a new fiery chapter when it comes to how we assert ourselves in relationships, in our creative projects, in how we share our values, in what we desire even for ourselves and for other people in this world. Maybe how we are dealing with money, how we are dealing with more margin topics, because it can happen, it depends on which houses these fall in your chart and how it's going to play out, because it can, if it's in the fourth house, it could be something like in your family, like finally you're like, I can assert myself in my family. These are my needs. If they can't be met, I need to kind of go a bit low on contact. If it's happening, in your sixth house, it might be something that is happening at your job. You're finally ready to ask for that raise, or go out and just like be assertive about like what you truly want and need. And otherwise it's like, no, my needs can't be met, I'm gonna find a new job. So it really depends on which areas in your chart it's happening. But this is not a horoscope video, I'm very sorry, but just like keep that in mind, okay? If you guys know your charts, keep that in mind. You can easily look it up, let's just put it that way. And there are also horoscopes coming up, by the way, for Saturn moving into Aries, which is also happening soon. There's lots of things going on in the back. 12th house episode is also in the making, so the house series is coming into a close. We also just had the Taurus Decans workshop, which was super fun and successful. And the Decans of Gemini are up next, so interesting things are going on. On Saturday, we don't have any significant transits either, but then Sunday takes the spotlight, I think we can kind of say again, with Sun conjoining Uranus. Definitely a big one at 27 degrees of Taurus. This is in the last decan of Taurus, in the third decan of Taurus. And the third decan of Taurus has a lot to do with reaping the benefits of what we have kind of sown when planets were transiting in the first decan of Taurus. And with Uranus, this is very monumental because we can, first of all, kind of see it on a global level at what is going on. And a lot of these like Taurian things, stock markets around like food supplies and food chains, agriculture, all of that is kind of also at a very interesting point, a kind of an unstable point. So we can definitely see that happening here, but also in our personal life, like what were the things that happened at the beginning? Uranus moved into Taurus for the first time in 2018. It briefly dipped in there, but it wasn't really until like March 2019 when Uranus fully moved into the sign of Taurus. So what was happening in your life? What started happening in your life in the Taurus house in your chart around March 2019? Because there were probably some seeds that have been sown at that time, and now we are kind of coming into a close. And I actually, you know what, I want to, just because we literally talked about the decans yesterday, and I do think that's just interesting to mention. The decans, by the way, are like the 10 degrees increments of each zodiac sign, because one zodiac sign is 30 degrees. And if we split it in 3, then there's the first 10 degrees, the middle 10 degrees, and the last 10 degrees. And all of them are kind of have like planetary rulers associated with them. So there's different realms we're entering, and also why certain planets in our own charts can have different meanings depending on which decan they are falling into. And now another fun thing is that when we look at the tarot, the minor arcana, the way they are structured, all belong to the decans. And so when we look at the decans of Taurus, we are looking at, first of all, Earth, which are the pentacles or the coins. And it is like the 5, the 6, and the 7 of coins. So this here, I hope it is the right direction. I don't know if it's like mirror reversal or something, but this is the first decan of Taurus, this is the second, and this is the third decan of Taurus, okay? And so, again, I know this card is like, it's very frugal and all of that. For me, this first card really just symbolizes to be very aware of where we plant our seeds, which types of people we surround ourselves with, and all of that. It's a very community-based a community care kind of decan. It's ruled by Mercury, so this is that. And then the second one is kind of like, okay, now we have more resources, what are we doing with those resources? And then the last one, as you can see here, is very much like there's a harvest moment going on, and we're looking at our harvest. And this last decan is in the realm of Saturn. So again, good things take time, but the thing with Saturn, and what I think also, let me put it this way. I think a lot of people that have problems with Saturn or don't really like Saturn that much have a hard time understanding that Saturn, like, what does it mean when we say that Saturn is the lord of karma? Karma, in the most simplest terms, means reaction to action. What we don't like about Saturn is that we are getting a reaction to an action we have taken. You know, go further on, you can also blame it on your past life. Like maybe you're getting a reaction from a past life. But even in this lifetime, you know, there's lots of like reactions that we are getting. And this is what a lot of people don't like about Saturn, is because we are facing the consequences of our own actions and things that took time. And like maybe we don't remember what the seeds are that we have planted during that time, but now things are coming to fruition, because if we do something or not, time still passes. We still get consequences to our actions. Sitting in your room doing nothing leads to consequences to your action. Going out into the world also leads consequences to your actions. Whatever you do, you are still constantly doing something. And now we are kind of at the phase where we are reaping the benefits of all of that. The sun has a lot to do with this like shiny golden life path that we are on. This also, when we look at birth charts, why we look at the sun sign is because there is usually some sort of like direction that the sun gives us, where we want to head, where our ideals lie in. And sun coming together with Uranus in Taurus is like the question of like, am I happy on the life path that I have been on? Am I happy with like reaping what I have sown in the beginning? Also, sorry, by the way, this is a Trippin Waite tarot deck. It is based on the Rider Waite tarot deck, but just like, I don't know, like a psychedelic version, essentially. In case you were wondering why they are a bit more funky, the cards. So this is kind of what we were really yeah, like questions that the universe is asking us, that these two planets are asking us. And what can we like revolutionize about it? What do we want to maybe change about it? Especially if we are not fully satisfied with what things are kind of coming into our life right now. Another thing that is also happening during that time, Mercury in Taurus is squaring Mars in Leo. Mars and Mercury together, like just from an archetypal perspective of these two planets, can be very combative, can be very, both of them are associated with games and when with sports. Obviously, Mercury would be more like head-heavy sports, something like chess or trivia. Mars is more like physical sports. Both of them have to do with playing games, though. And so I think there's this interesting combination that is going on here of like maybe us not getting... Oh, hey, my cat is here again. Getting stuck, or like there's just like a real... Yes. Adjusted, yes. You're disturbing my video. Hey, come here. Come here. Let's let her be here as well. Meow, meow, meow. Well, I guess, yeah, maybe it's time for food afterwards. Okay, wait, now I got a bit confused here with what I was trying to say. Essentially, we just have to be, like, aware that we're like not playing any sort of games. There's definitely like a revolutionary aspect going on with Uranus and the Sun, especially when they come together. They can be very idealized and very like, oh, I have to go into this quest, or like I just had this mind-boggling realization. But now it's like, okay, what do we do with this? Like, what do we do with that information? Do we have to immediately go out into the world and spread it to everyone and try everyone to convince that, oh no, this is the right life path, like this is the way you should live your life and go? Or is it something that can just be a personal thing and we can accept that other people are allowed to have their own opinions as well when it comes to this? Because it can definitely be like Mercury and Taurus squaring Mars and Leo. I feel like there's just a potential to be like a lot of social quarrels. I hope this is the right way I'm pronouncing that word. Or just like in between like relationships, just like unnecessarily playing games, or suddenly something goes just a bit too far, like, like you're bickering and it's kind of a bit funny, like you're teasing each other, and then all of a sudden somebody drops something where it's like, whoa, that was just like a bit too far. Or like now you're going a bit too much into your like ideology, or like now you're too much like convincing other people like, no, this is the way that we should be living our lives, or something like that. There's definitely like this idealized version or light we can want to head into when Sun and Uranus come together. In Taurus especially, I feel like there has been a lot of like idealization going on when it comes to like back to nature. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that movement. I definitely went back to nature myself, so I'm not bashing on it at all. Lots of like tradwife trends coming up, people wanting to revert back to an older lifestyle. And again, I'm not bashing on it at all. Just like observing things. Like the revolutionary thing around, since Uranus moved into Taurus, is to be offline, to connect back to nature. Like that is the revolutionary thing to do. The rebellious thing to do is to be like, oh no, actually I'm not going to be on Instagram. I'm going to completely be offline from the world, and I'm going to connect back to nature and to my roots and plant my own garden. There's definitely, and like the urge for community and obviously a lot of things coming from like pandemic times as well, which were also heavily influenced with Uranus there as well, So I think this is sometimes just what can happen, like this idealized lifestyle that can happen, and that's totally fine. Like we all are allowed to have our idealizations, and then it's like, okay, well, find the community that supports that, you know. But what we also just have to be aware of is like, when is it going so far in the way where we're like, we literally just can't accept other people having their own opinions or other ways of wanting to live their life, because that's allowed. Your way of wanting to live your life, or like a lifestyle you want to get into, is not the right lifestyle for maybe everyone, and that's completely okay. And I feel like that's just things that can come up around Sunday if we are not being careful enough. Again, we also still, like, this is happening later in the evening, Central European time, Jupiter in Gemini is squaring also the North Node in Pisces. So there too, you know, it's like at the bending of the nodes, as we say. So there's definitely something, and Jupiter has to do with like beliefs and our structures that we form around how we build our worldview. Jupiter is very much linked to how our beliefs shape our worldview, and that's very important for many people. And when this shatters, you know, when we change our worldview, that's a very crazy moment. And I feel like Sunday is such a day that something like that can happen. There's definitely just a lot going on with like Sun, Uranus, you know, all of that, and then there's like Mercury, and then there's also Jupiter. There's like a big energy in like life-changing things that can happen, but like, what do we do with that? What do we do with what do we do with that? What do we do with our new formed set of belief systems, or the direction that where we want to head in? Are we you know, doing it like in a maniac type of way where we're like, okay, now everything has to be put on hold and this is like the new way of living and it's great? Or can we like chill for a sec here and let everything sink in with the nodes, with Jupiter being at the bending of the nodes? I feel like there's just definitely also a bit of a feeling of like fated destiny and this really needing to happen right now, especially probably also with the like Jupiter in Gemini, so like whatever house Gemini rules in your chart, what has been going on there, because Jupiter is also kind of wrapping up its story in the sign of Gemini. In less than a month, Jupiter will enter the sign of Cancer. Uranus is finishing up its cycle in Taurus. It's going to enter Gemini later on. We still have a bit more of Uranus, like 2 months, okay? So again, but still lots of planets are finishing up their stays. So there's like a final push, a final like realization type of energy with a lot of these transits, especially on Sunday. And this is kind of really how we are ending this week. So again, pretty intense energy coming up again by the end of this week. And yeah, I guess this is what I will leave you with, guys. Once again, this video is way longer than I anticipated it to be, but I'm gonna just embrace the things that I have to say. If it's flowing, it's flowing, you know, and I have to keep on going. So this is what I have to say. Again, as for the videos, I already said I'm planning on doing horoscopes, for Saturn moving into Aries, although this is only coming up next week. There's probably also going to be Jupiter moving into Cancer horoscopes. So yeah, horoscopy stuff, I guess, in the lineup. The 12th house is coming. The decans of Gemini are coming. Lots of things that I post here on YouTube, but also even outside of that, I post on Instagram. I'm also pretty active on Instagram, so it's definitely worth following me there, especially if you like to also read through things in a written form. I did, for example, a post on the Scorpio Full Moon, which also got a lot of like positive feedback and people resonated with that. So, like, and that's like on Instagram, you know, I can't do that on YouTube. But again, some people enjoy this more, some people enjoy that more, some people enjoy both. And then I absolutely invite you to also give me a follow on there. All my socials are down in the link below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up because it helps out more than you know. Commenting also helps out more than you know. Obviously not forcing you, only if you have something to say, but I am always curious about people's experiences, and if commenting on YouTube is too much, shoot me a DM on Instagram, you know, like we can also have like a like one-on-one conversation. I'm also up for that. And if you found this video useful, also, you know, share it, you know, maybe somebody else might find it useful. That's also a great way to spread the world. And yeah, I'll leave you guys with that. Have a fantastic week ahead, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.